Hello everyone, today we are taking a look at the Cineape20 with the possibility of having an O4 in it. It also comes in other versions like for O3 and analog. Analog seems like strange, and you may have noticed missing some props, so we'll talk about that here during the flight footage. So I'm using the O4 Pro inside. It also has the ability to do the O4 air unit. That's the smaller, lighter one that we're calling oftentimes, at least on this channel, the O4 Lite. I believe this mount is for the O3. This one is either for the O4 Lite or for analog. I'm not certain which. The flight controller, which we can only see the USB port of because it's covered by the prop protection as well as this carbon fiber plate, is the bottom, is the DarwinFPV F411. It's a 15 amp all-in-one flight controller, and it does come with Express LRS on the board. The motors are Bling 1103 8000 kV. This is a 3S quad. The props, which I am missing a few from, are the GemFan 2023, and no, they do not have screw holes built into these props. These are slightly different than the traditional 2-inch GemFans we're used to seeing. It does come with a GPS, which is the M10 Mini, but mine, I could never get to work. The prop protection goes all the way around the props as well as up here, so it can keep grass and whatnot, but essentially it just mounts to the centerpiece. The prop protection does not mount via these 3 screws. That is just for the carbon fiber plate to stay up in there, but it is using this back screw as well as the other screws that go slightly behind these screws for the flight controller stack. XT30 for your battery connection, Velcro for your battery holding, texture battery mat to help make it stay put. Carbon fiber is 2mm thick. Motor post to motor post, I'm getting about 90mm. With the O4, but without the props because I took them all off, it weighs 97.29 grams. 2 props weigh 1.5 grams, so if we add 2 more props, we get 3 grams in props plus the 97.2, and we end up with 100.2 in total quad weight. It does come with a bit of an accessory pack. This is foam stripping you would put on the outside of the prop protection. It comes with a couple little antenna tubes, some zip ties, looks like some various screws, some motor screws, some stack screws, antenna tube ends. And that looks like about all there. Plus we get another screw pack for whatever purposes if something rattles loose on you. I didn't get any extra props, but it did come with 4, and it does come with 1 sheet of stickers. I did do cruisy battery testing to get flight times for these particular batteries, which we'll talk about during the slower flight. We shall take off here in a moment. A couple things that I noticed. One, the GPS never worked. It powers on, and I do get blinking LEDs as though it's trying to work. I did tinker with it. I did take it apart and put it back together a few times just to make sure we had good connections, because it did come without the O4, so I had to put the O4 in it, which meant I could have disturbed the connector wiring or something. I did check those things. If there's an internal wire break, I just don't know. I didn't go as far as replacing the entire wire harness. So that's kind of one thing to know about my particular experience, is that the GPS just did not work. This has been reviewed by other people, so it shouldn't be any issue to find other videos and see if their results on the GPS working or not was different. Flight statistics for this particular flight, very, very calm day, and I did find this was fairly important. 3 to 7 miles per hour on the wind. The temperature is 52 degrees Fahrenheit, and even with this very low wind, I see some bobbles from time to time. Right now, we were looking at the DVR, which had all the OSD elements from Betaflight, and then we switched over to the onboard video recording that is with Rocksteady on, and that does help to smooth it out a little bit. But I think, as you know, you will notice that even with the wind, low 3 to 7 miles per hour, which at least for me in my area is a pretty low wind. That would be traditional analog whoop flying weather, at least outside for me. I still notice every once in a while we would see the wind kind of make the quad shudder a little bit, so that our footage wouldn't be necessarily 100% stable. As to fly times on my results, now I flew each battery, not the battery themselves, but the same brand, the same size, those things. I have a whole bunch of batteries that I go through. I flew 3 in each class, let's say, which is typical for what I do on the channel. The 550, I got about 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Excuse me, let's go to the 660 set next. I didn't get that much more flight time. Of course, that's not a high quality battery in my opinion. It's a G&B, but it's their lower kind of quality battery. It's the yellow label. I can't remember the C rating on it, but it was in the video previously. I only got 5 minutes and 40 seconds, so not that much more flight time with over 100 more milliamps, so I was a little bit surprised by that. But with the red label G&B 720, I did get 6 minutes and 10 seconds. So it seems to me that of the batteries that I'm flying, that you might want to either do the 550, because you do get pretty good flight times at 5 minutes and 20 seconds, at least in my experience in flying these particular kind of quads, 2-inch, that, once you get, to that measurement where it's getting close to a time as to the capacity of the battery, that's fairly efficient. 720s, of course, is a lot more weight, so that's going to increase your inertia if you were to crash, so you'll have potential for more damage. But you do get longer flight times with it if that's what you're actually looking for. 6 minutes, 10 seconds on the 720 GNBs that I was showing you. Those are averages across 3 different batteries, all on the same day. I try to do those flights all on the same day, so they're pretty consistent as far as what you can expect from the quad if you were to have the same batteries I do. Now, my batteries have a lot of cycles on them because I do this all the time. So if you have real fresh batteries that you just got, they'll likely fly a little bit longer. You can see there we switched back over to the DVR, and I switched back over to the DVR footage so that you can see what the pilot experience is. Is the camera jiggling around? This is no rock steady. So it gives you a more raw or natural look. It also has some other statistical information. We have the throttle value, so you get to see how much throttle it takes to just kind of cruise around as I'm doing. We have the battery statistics, and we have the flight time down there as well. And then we have the Goggles 3 information. I am flying at 60 megabits per second, which is typical with Goggles 3 and the O4. And you can also saw there for a time that the onboard storage filled up. That's why I had to jump back over to the DVR footage on this particular flight. So the next up is going to be a very short, faster flight. So let's go ahead and move on to that. All right, hold on to your hat. This will not last long. Unfortunately, this is my very first flight and increasing the camera angle. So I am not used to the camera angle, which is actually quite low for me. With the canopy and its design, you can't move the camera angle up very high. So this is a little bit of rough, but I think it's still, we get to do a punch out. We get to do a couple of things that I would traditionally do, but unfortunately, it ends in a bump into a tree, and then the props went somewhere. I don't know where. I couldn't find them. I spent probably 30 minutes looking around in that tree area for the props, but we'll see that coming up here just momentarily. But the props went away, and then that's when I discovered that it didn't come with any extra props. That's sad. There we go. We're in the grass. I'm going to flip over, and then I'm going to discover that I can't take off again despite the grass being very, very low. I just figured I had a prop stuck in the grass somewhere, but I walk over to the quad to find out I got 2 props missing. So then I spend some more time just kind of looking around, hopefully hoping to find the props, but I struck out. So we only got 46 seconds of my faster sort of flying, but hopefully it gives you some idea, just a little bit of how it would fly in that scenario. So obviously I didn't have any damage other than the props just flying off, and that's why in the quick specs I showed you the fact that there are no prop screws, so you cannot secure these to the motors. The motors have screw holes to where you could if they used the traditional gym fan props, but they didn't. That they make their own choices, so we just don't have any opportunity to fly the other props or with screws. So that's kind of the downside, is that if you do, like I showed you already in this video, if you do hit the prop protection and you hit it with enough force, that the props just seem to fly off. I lost both props on that one bonk onto that tree, and that ended my fly time. As far as the GPS goes, I already kind of covered that. I would get lights on the GPS. I did get what I think is activity that would actually kind of shine through the print mount here. So why it didn't work, I don't know. I'll probably never know, but that's my experience, and I always try to just share my experience when it comes to these quads. I don't necessarily spend a heavy amount of time trying to solve every problem, because I'm conducting this review as though as your experience that you might have. So my GPS didn't work. In that case, we would, go back to the support of the company and then say, hey, GPS doesn't work. They would probably have suggestions to things to try that I have pretty much already tried, like making sure your connector is all the way in, making sure you have power on the GPS, making sure the GPS configuration in Betaflight is what it should be, the UART set as it should. These are all things that I already checked. So I have to presume that there's even maybe an internal wire breakage to get some data back to the flight controller, or the GPS just isn't syncing with satellites, because I had 9 flights, and some of them went as much as, 6+ minutes, and during no part of any of those flights did it ever get even one satellite. So that's kind of covers that. As far as the frame design goes, the one thing I'm not crazy about is some of these traditional Phillips screws. I would rather see them secured into a brass fitting rather than another piece of plastic. This carbon fiber piece is secured into the plastic of the frame, so it uses self-tapping screws. I guess that'll work just fine. I would rather just see a traditional screw used that goes into a metal mount or a brass fitting of some sort. It's just my hesitancy when we go to crashing these things, presuming you crash, because I crash, as I've already shown, is that those self-tapping screws, they shift a little bit and they kind of wallow out the holes in plastics, whereas in metal, it doesn't happen. But if you have two solid objects and then you have an abrupt force, it can shear those things off too. So there's upsides and downsides to that as well. You can see here, let me get a pointer out. We have our mount screws for the TPU mount. I don't think I covered that. This is TPU. It is flexible. And I did find that it took a little bit of finessing with the camera mount to get the camera square in there, or, straight vertical. At least I think I got it pretty well. So I had to tighten and loosen and kind of squish things around here and there and then tighten it back down to get things kind of square. This section held fairly well. Another area I'm not crazy about is the antenna holding. You can't push these into it. If you look here real close, you could probably tell the heat shrink has been shoved up on the antenna a little bit, because I was trying to get them down in these holes and get them to stay, but they just don't. I don't suspect that you would want to mount these from the underside through to where you had this part just kind of sticking through. I can't envision that. The pictures I've seen show the antennas kind of up here like this, but these holes don't seem to be big enough where you can actually seat these down in there and they would stay put. I guess the upside to that is, oh, what is the upside? Geez, that you wouldn't bend or snap one off right here because it would come loose and flop around. I guess that's an upside. The downside is that you kind of have to check these to make sure they're still there. They didn't get ripped off, like you kind of would suffer with any sort of antenna mount. I do like, and I didn't mention that there is a capacitor right back here. So they've had this mold done to include their capacitor. And I do kind of like that fit and finish of bringing the prop protection in and then protecting your all-in-one flight controller from gathering debris. It is a pusher, so it is right in line with your all-in-one. So that cleans things up a little bit. You can see in mine, even I've got some debris in there. So that obviously protects other stuff from getting in there. And that could be important if you're out for an early morning flight and you have some dew on the grass and you take off from the grass or you land in the grass. That could be a savior there. The USB port is slightly recessed below the carbon fiber plate back here, so I don't foresee that being an issue. But one thing that I am a little bit concerned about, and it may be very difficult to see, is this screw and the mount point. That seems awful close, if not right next to that USB port. So if we get that in here close, let me zoom in instead of bringing it up towards the camera. So hopefully you can see that screw mount point right here, and whatever that is, I think that's a metal standoff right there. It seems like it's just right up against the USB port. So if you do have impacts and things shifting, that the flight controller on its gummies could shift and bonk into that metal piece time and time again, which could result in the USB port coming loose. I would prefer to see a millimeter or 2 millimeters or 3 millimeters of distance between that and any other metal object or really any sort of mount point, because once you lose your USB port, while some people can repair it, it would be tedious at the very least, and something that could be avoided just by shifting this mount or changing our mounting of the prop protection and bottom plate a little bit to keep that away. But in this case, it looks to me like it's right close to the USB port. I mentioned it in my flight, but this mount with the GPS up here does not allow for a lot of up tilt. You can see I've pretty much got it maxed out, and you can tell from the slider mount point down here that this screw is pretty much all the way forward, if not all the way forward. So this is about the max camera angle that you're going to be able to get. And that was one of the things that, because I only had the one 46-second flight, I wasn't able to get used to that lower camera angle, and it usually takes me a few flights to get used to that. So if you look to fly something like this with higher camera angle than that, you're going to have to do something with this mount and possibly reposition the GPS in order to create more ability to create some up tilt. You can see there's slightly some lens protection on the sides here, but obviously it sticks out down here, at least with the camera angle I've got. If we lower this down, then this top flange is going to stick out just a touch. So this isn't really going to do much, and it's TPU, so it's going to bend, it's going to flex, and it's going to move out of the way. So this doesn't necessarily give you any more camera protection than any other sort of mount, because oftentimes with these sort of designs where they're filmology or camera sorts of drones, not like DJI ones, but filming camera sorts of drones, that O4, due to its wide field of view, and O3s, the cameras are pretty proud, they're pretty out front. It's very difficult to make a design where you can actually protect them much anyway. So that's a risk that's inherent to these quads with the super wide field of view and HD recording capabilities. The nice part about having it up top here is that everything's accessible. You can see right there we got our bind button, our SD card, and then over here on the other side we have our USB-C port for activation, as well as getting the footage off of the VTX unit itself. And that is the Cineape20 from DarwinFPV. Unfortunately, I just didn't get enough flights with it faster in order to do one of my traditional reviews. I did think about going out on the market and buying more props. And I can do that. One of my concerns with doing that before I released the video was that what if I forget that I lost 2 props on the very first crash, you know, because it would come sometimes later, a week, 10 days later after I bought more props. So I decided that I was going to do this video first. If there are enough people that are interested in seeing a faster flight with this, let me know down in the comments section. I can acquire some more of these props from one of our FPV shops and then take it out back for some more aggressive, faster sorts of flights, and I can get comfortable with the lower camera angle and the weight of the quad. And it's a 3S quad, so it's a little bit different than we've been seeing in a lot of places. People are going to ask me, you know, pluses and minuses of 3S and 2S. Generally speaking, with 3S, you'll get a little bit more performance as well as longer flight time, but you're carrying more weight. So with anything, especially in micros, as your battery weight goes up, your flight time doesn't always go up. There's a threshold where you're carrying too much weight, so you're using more throttle and your flight time actually plateaus, or it starts actually to come down than a lower weight battery. So, and that's why I do the various battery reporting, flight time reporting on batteries, but I don't have loads of different sizes that you might be curious about. But hopefully with the different sizes that I've shown you and reported in the video, you can draw some conclusions about the batteries you might target to fly with not only this, but really anything else on the channel. If you have any other comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, remember, if you want to see this flying faster and buy some more props, let me know down in the comment section. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.